entrance into the sector. In South Africa, more than 10 million international tourists arrived in 2016, 13% more than in 2015. This is well over the global average growth rate at 3% for the period. During this period of tourism in Indaba, South Africa will benefit from the number of delegates that will descend on South Africa. The Minister of Energy, Mamuluku Kubai, will this month lead the Energy Month campaign under the theme Promoting Affordable and Sustainable Energy Mix in Support of Radical Socio-Economic Transformation. The campaign will educate, create awareness and engage the public on energy efficiency, energy security, alternative energy matters, and how they are all central to household, commercial, and industrial consumption. The 2017 departmental budget votes in 2017 present an opportunity for the departments to present to Parliament and to the general public how they will be utilizing the 2017 budgets allocated to them. They will also use these submissions to also share with the public what their programs will entail for the current financial year. And Cabinet calls on all in the public to engage with these presentations as they are presented through the parliamentary processes. The Department of Water and Sanitation will host Sanitation Week between the 16th to the 22nd of May under the theme Sanitation for Health and Dignity. Government is committed to bringing dignity to South Africans through the provision of sanitation services. The main focus during the week will be the Priority Bucket Eradication Program. This will see the handover of waterborne sanitation to communities in the Ngedwana municipality in the Free State and the David Kraper local municipality in the Northern Cape as part of accelerating services to replace bucket toilets. You will also remember that these are the municipalities that have quite a sizable backlog in the eradication program. South Africa is celebrating the Africa Month under the theme Building a Better Africa and a Better World. A number of activities are taking place led by the Department of Arts and Culture, which are aimed at promoting African unity. The activities will culminate on the 25th of May 2017, where the President will host a luncheon at the Sefako Makgatho Presidential Guest House. Invited to the luncheon will be leaders of organizations of foreign national residents in South Africa, which the President had met during 2015. Cabinet welcomes the decision by President Zuma to extend the deployment of members of the South African National Defence Force in the Democratic Republic of Congo. This is in an effort to contribute to peace and stability in the African continent, and in particular the region, in line with our international obligations and our foreign policy of contributing to a better world and a better Africa. A total of 1,371 members of the SNDF are deployed in the DRC in support of the United Nations Stabilization Mission. Their deployment has been extended from the 1st of April 2017 to 31st of March 2018. Our deployments on the continent are in continued support of regional and continental processes to respond to and resolve crises, promote peace, security, strengthen regional integration, significantly increase intra-African trade, and champion sustainable development in Africa. Cabinet also congratulates all the recipients of the 2017 national orders in the year of O.R. Tambo. They have shown us the power of working towards a better South Africa and a better nation. We draw inspiration from their achievements and their dedication, passion, and willingness to advance humanity. For the Order of Ikamanga, in gold, there was one recipient. The Order of Ikamanga in silver, 7, and in bronze, 1. The Order of the Baobab in gold, 1, 2 for silver and 2 for bronze. The Order of Lutuli in silver, 29, 1 in bronze. The Order of Mapungupo in silver, 1, and the Order of the Companions of O.R. Tambo in gold, 1. The release of the 17th Commission for Employment Equity report by Minister of Labour, Mildred Oliphant, shows the stubbornly slow pace of transformation at various workplaces in the South African local labour market. The report demonstrates that we are still far from achieving a workforce that is truly representative of our nation. African people, women, and persons with disabilities remain severely underrepresented in all aspects of employment equity. I know that Minister Oliphant had addressed the media on this issue, and more information is available on their website on the disparities that we speak of. The report showed that white people occupied 68% of the country's top management positions in the public and private sectors, 6 times the group's economically active population. Africans made up only 14% of top management. Given the urgent need to transform the economy and ensure inclusive growth, this is simply not good enough. Cabinet welcomes the announcement by the Minister of Labour that her department is considering adopting harsher consequences for non-compliance. Cabinet joins President Jacob Zuma in congratulating Emmanuel Macron, President-elect of the Republic of France, following his victory on the 7th of May 2017. South Africa looks forward to working with the French government under the leadership of Mr. Macron to consolidate the already strong political, economic, and trade ties between South Africa and France. Cabinet also congratulates the former mayor of Johannesburg and South Africa Local Government Association Chairperson, Councillor Parkstow, on his appointment as co-chair of the United Nations High-Level Independent Panel to oversee the effectiveness of Habitat 3. The program was adopted by the UN to reinvigorate the global commitment to sustainable urbanization. The Department of Trade and Industry took home the Best Foreign Exhibitor Award at the 58th Zimbabwe International Trade Fair. This acknowledges the outstanding efforts by Team South Africa towards ensuring the country's commitment to building partnerships with Zimbabwe, that it has yielded the desired economic gains. Cabinet extended condolences to the government and the people of the Republic of Tanzania on the tragic bus accident that resulted in the death of 36 people, 33 of them children. On appointments, you should note that all appointments are subject to the verification of qualifications and the relevant security clearances. The board of the Independent Regulatory Board for Auditors, new people have been appointed, and there have been reappointments of people that have already been there. The first one is Ms. Amanda L. Mazibugo, it's a reappointment. Mr. Abel Dlamini, also a reappointment. Mr. Tiru Pillay, a reappointment. Mr. Nkabaneng T. Mashile, new. Ms. Zuzile Nzalaze, new. Mr. Mohamed I. Mutala, new. Mr. Madoda A. Petros, new. And Ms. Marty J. van Rensburg, also new. The reappointment of Mr. Cedric Monwabisi Masondo as Managing Director and Executive Director of Special Risk Insurance Association, which is also a state-owned company. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Minister. I think the Minister has indicated that she's only going to take one round. Can I take firstly some of the questions, because I'll take all of you at one, because I think the Minister is not going to have a second round. With your permission, can I start with the Pretoria? Pretoria?
Yes, there's a question.
Good morning, Minister. Anton Meyer from Pretoria. I think there's a lot of talk about judicial overreach, the doctrine of separation of powers. We've seen a lot of judgment recently by the courts against decisions taken by cabinet ministers. Are you as cabinet concerned about the relations between the two arms of state? I know President Jacob Zuma met with the Chief Justice in 2015 about the relations between the judiciary and the executive. Do you think it's time for a follow-up meeting? And then just on that matter, President Jacob Zuma applied for leave to appeal against the judgment last week that he should provide his reasons, the recorded reasons for his cabinet reshuffle to the DA. What's your view on his leave to appeal application, and then the cabinet's view on the DA's court application to have these record and reasons made available to them? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone? Still in Pretoria?
No, that's the last for this round.
Thank you. Let me start here with you.
Thank you, Bola. Minister Les from ENCA. Just firstly on the fee cabal, now that it's been signed by the President, what still needs to be consulted on by the Minister if it has now already been signed into law? And secondly, early in the week, the Minister says whether the term is radical economic transformation or whether it's inclusive growth, it still serves to seek the same end goal. What exactly is the term being used inside Cabinet? Is it radical economic growth? Is it inclusive growth? Because according to the Minister, it may not mean much, but to people outside, especially investors, the term that is being used and the theorems around it, that is particularly important.
Thank you. And then yes.
Morning, Minister. Paul Vecchiato from Bloomberg. Just quickly, the ministerial team who's going to assist the Minister of Finance, could you say who's on their team? When do you expect the ratings agencies to actually visit? And then the consequences for employment equity that Cabinet's considering. Could you give us an idea of what they're considering, what form they'll take? Is Cabinet looking at introducing a bill or regulations or an update to that?
Sorry, I was just writing your first question. What's the second one, sorry?
The second one, when do you expect the ratings agencies to visit?
That was the first one? Yeah.
Sorry, well, who's part of the team? And then the second one is on the consequences for unemployment equity. What is Cabinet considering? Is it going to be in the form of a new bill? Will it include fines, jail sentences, that sort of thing? Can you give us details?
Yes.
Thanks, Minister. Minister, just some feedback again, please. It says here the consultation is ongoing and will be finalized soon. That's on page 4 of 10. And so as to ensure process of promulgation. So my colleague did ask about the consultations. Who is that with? Did Minister provide a timeline? Because again, I think that's important. If there's a sense that the regulations and things will be promulgated like before December, if there's a possible timeline for the implementation of FICA. And just on AXA, the appeal mechanism, is that for an appeal mechanism for you, the passenger, versus the airport, or is that more sort of like a more trading kind of thing? Let's say SAA versus BA or Kalula or something like that. Just a bit more of that appeal mechanism than what it seeks to accomplish.
Linda?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Minister. Linda Ennis on Business Day. Just on the team that will be working on the credit rating agencies' visits, did Cabinet sort of formulate the message that it wants to convey in conjunction with the Finance Minister on what the message will be to the credit rating agencies? Thank you.
Thank you. I think the last two, it's you and then you. Okay, you are the last, and that's it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you can.
Thank you very much. Lokana Talato from the SABC. Ma'am, in the cabinet discussions you mentioned issues about discussions on how to reverse the downgrades. Could you elaborate a little bit more on just what some of those issues entail? Just give us a little bit more detail on what was discussed on how to actually reverse the downgrades. Thanks very much.
Jan Gerber, News 24. Minister, yesterday, this is a question on your portfolio. Yesterday, in the Portfolio Committee on Communications, the chairperson of the Interim SABC board said that they forwarded a proposal on the funding for the SABC to you. Have you received the proposal yet, and can you divulge how much money the SABC won? Thanks.
You are the last one.
Thank you. Kodagana Business Day. Just wanted to find out, relating to Airports Company SA, if there's been any indication of the newly appointed Minister of Transport's engagements with AXA, pertaining particularly to the board and the impasse that the previous minister had with the persons on the board. And secondly, relating to the Vuwani situation, the indications that have already been made that just because there has been an intervention. It's not to say that the decision to bring Vuwani into what's being called Collins Chabane local municipality is not going to be reversed. Taking that and citing another example of municipal adjustments where, and this is not to bring political party matters into the realm of government, but the ANC and the AIC having an agreement that Matatiele should return to KwaZulu-Natal, not to say that the possibility of coalition agreements coming to an end would have anything to do with it, but that decision giving the impression to the AIC that that is going to happen as soon as the end of the year, given all of the adjustments that have to be made, changing the shape of 2 provinces, and of course such a proposal having to come to Parliament. With that in mind, what is the actual reason for not giving or indulging the wishes of people in Vuwani pertaining to the state of the municipality that they're in? And in relation to Matatiele, how far has that process gone so far? Who has been consulted in terms of provincial government? And given the fact that opposition parties that have been asked have said that this is an agreement of expediency, what would you say to them? Because it would appear that if it makes its way to this house, they're going to try and oppose it with all they've got. Thank you.
That's all. Minister.
Thank you very much. I think I'll start with the Vuwani issues. There's been quite a few questions on Vuwani. I'm not sure what the details are with regards to the discussion between the AIC and the African National Congress. Maybe the Minister for Cocta would have that detail on the Matatiele issue. But I think the basic approach by government with the IMC that is in place is that we look at things in a holistic fashion. Decisions are taken, there's appeals processes that are in place according to legislation, and that's what we would want to respect. If you look at the work that we've done as a nation since 1994, we've tried to walk away from issues of old apartheid spatial frameworks, that's one, but also tried to be very careful in not fueling what would be seen as tribalism in our society, but also in terms of the decisions that we take, that we do not create communities that are based on tribe and to entrench that. We would like to see more inclusive communities. That is why we have what Minister Lindiwe Sisulu is dealing with in inclusive human settlement programs. Now, we have spoken to the people of Vuwani, there's been agreement, and we have not said to them that what it is that they wish for is going to happen. But we've put a contingency in plan to say services that are not delivered must be delivered by the district to all municipalities under its jurisdiction. There has been calls from the people of Malamulele who are also watching this process very, very closely. You must also understand that that in itself has a potential of taking a tribalistic tone. So we have a responsibility as government, but also leaders in society have a responsibility to ensure that we do not go back to Gazankulu and, what was the other one? Gazankulu and Lebowa. Yeah. I don't think that's what we would want to see as a government, but I don't also think South African society would want to see us going back to those demarcations that actually are demarcated along tribal or racial lines. On FICA, for every piece of legislation, it is always expected that there will be regulations to ensure the implementation or adherence to of that legislation. And I think this is what FICA seeks to address. I mean, the FICA regulations would seek to address. You must remember that we're also signatories to international and continental protocols on dealing with issues that FICA would also be dealing with. So those regulations, I am not sure, the question was asked, I'm not sure when the minister will finalize this. He did not give us a clear time frame, but he did say that consultation is underway, and the consultation obviously would be consultation with all stakeholders that would have to be part of the implementation or overseeing the implementation of FICA. That would be the JCPS cluster, that would be the economic cluster, and I think to some extent it would also be justice, well, justice as in the JCPS cluster. So those consultations should still continue. I'm not sure whether those consultations will also include Parliament on the development of the regulations. But ultimately, those regulations would have to be presented to Parliament, in my understanding. The ratings agencies, we were looking at, the communications was that they will be here between May and June. And I think the third one is going to be towards, I think, August or September. So those were the rough dates that we were looking at, or the rough estimate of timeframes that we're looking for them to be coming into the country. The minister has said to me that he is going to hold a press conference to properly give a feedback on the discussions he's had with the ratings agency during his visit to the United States, but also for those that he has met in South Africa, and also the misgivings of the ratings agencies. But he has tried his best, even at WEF, to allay the concerns and the fears that there is new policy that might be introduced because a new minister has been appointed. ANC policy is what guides our policy framework. And the ANC goes to conference every 5 years. None of us have the authority to change policy midstream unless there are serious problems that affect our people in the implementation of that policy. So Minister Malusi Gigaba has no intention to change anything that was implemented by his predecessor in terms of policy. So we have tried our best during WEF and in the meetings that he's had to ensure that those fears of policy changes are allayed. On the question that was asked as to whether the Cabinet did discuss the ruling and the judgments, yes, there was a discussion on that, but at the end of it, it was decided that this should be left to the presidency to deal with. As you see, we have not actually reported on it because it was left to the presidency because they still had to report, I mean, to respond to what was raised in the ruling. I think it was the Cape High Court or the Johannesburg High Court, but they had the presidency still had to report to that. So I was not at liberty to deal with the issues here, and this is why I did not raise it in this meeting. I would want to steer away from giving my personal view on the matter. As I have been asked what my view is on the leave to appeal, I would rather steer away from that because I am presenting before you what Cabinet had discussed and the decisions of Cabinet. And that decision was that we should leave it to the presidency to respond on the matter in the way that they feel they would be responding. Consequences for non-compliance on employment equity. What was presented to us was that the department would be looking at consequences for non-compliance because fines have proved, small fines have proved not to be effective. Companies would prefer to pay the fine, which is almost insignificant, rather than comply with legislation. So what it is that the Labour Ministry is looking at, I really do not know at this stage. But I hope that Minister will be able to take the nation into confidence on whatever decision would be taken in terms of the consequences for non-compliance. On credit ratings, how will we reverse the downgrade? There are many things that we need to take into account, including prudent fiscal discipline, not exceeding the ceiling that has been placed with regards to expenditure in the system. President also spoke about behavior and pronouncements that we make that are conflicting. But again, like I said, Minister Melusi Kigaba will also hold a press conference just to give you feedback on what was discussed, but also what he will expect us as cabinet ministers to do in supporting his work towards ensuring that we go back to a more positive credit rating. Have I received the funding request? I did receive it last night. When I came back from the sitting in Parliament, I did receive it in the office. Honourable Van Dam was being extremely mischievous towards me, because at that point I really had not received it. But now I have received it. I've asked my financial team to sit with me to take me through it. I've asked them to also sit with Treasury so that we can review it, because I am not looking at a today or tomorrow solution. I'm looking at a lasting solution to the problems of financial stability of the Broadcasting Corporation. So I don't know what the amount is. Whatever amount is on the document, I wouldn't want to talk about it, and I wouldn't want to commit myself to that figure, because there are other things that when I was asking my advisor about the document, because he had gone through it, there are other things that are not covered there. We still have the digital migration program that we're implementing and rolling out. That is not covered in the request for financial funding. So I will be able to get back to the SABC and the Treasury around what it is that is there, but I still need to go through it and respond to the SABC. I think I have, the impasse with the Board of Transport. I really don't know whether the Minister is looking into that and what he has done, because he did not bring that to Parliament. On the AXA, the regulation, the regulator or the appeal mechanism is for the regulators, the SOC, and the industry players. So it's dispute mechanism, the appeal mechanisms that have been put in place to ensure that everybody understands what the rules of the game are with respect to that. I think I have covered everything.
Yes, thanks.
Thanks, Minister. The Finance Minister will be consulting for the credit rating agencies. You mentioned a team of ministers.
Oh, I don't have that. I don't.
I think we've come. Thanks, Minister. Thank you very much, Minister. We've come to the end of the media briefing, and thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
I'm not happy at all. I really am not happy. Hi.